So
Yes.
we'll just fix them up. And got a couple of people on.
Oh, nice.
And a bunch of people signed up. So
Nice. Well,
many more have shown up now.
people are
Apparently, there are
training.
some people out there who want to learn introductory acceptance and commitment therapy and training.
Excellent.
So if you are interested in that, obviously you're here, but also throw a chat in and say where you're from. That's in the lower right corner of your.
I'm pointing to my lower right now.
Well,
So
if you're on a computer, I don't know about iPad.
down there.
I don't know. But and you can follow us in the upper right corner of your screen. So, and that way, when we go online like this, you get announcements and such. We have over 1,000 followers, so that's
Yeah,
really cool.
I saw that. That's cool.
And and you can get similar to this training. Well, it's a lot more, obviously, by clicking the green button below us and signing up for Introductory ACT training over on the website. That one's live. We have some other ones that are in process. Bill and I have done recordings for 5. Introductory, which is a 6-hour course. Anxiety and depression, that's a 3-hour.
Yeah. Families, couples, and groups.
That's another 3-hour.
Trauma.
There we go. So those all together, and they're coming online. So nobody's chatted in yet, but maybe you will. It's not very hard. We've never heard anybody of being injured.
It's kind of fun, actually. We enjoy it.
And
We
that
enjoy
way,
see what you are from.
I'm from Maine. Phil's
I'm in Pennsylvania.
And you can
And
chat in and say where you're from.
Mary must have weighed in yesterday.
I saw that. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you're on a recording, you can chat in.
Oh, yeah.
Please stay up. So, and one of the problems was the recording didn't work while we're redoing it. But that's all right.
This one will work. It's recording. I can see it right down there.
No, I can too. And we'll do the introductory thing. This time we will do it old school. Bill will hold up his whiteboards.
Got my whiteboard.
We will show you around the beginnings of that. I mean, nobody's chatted it. Some of you, are you beginners at ACT?
Yeah. Have you just stumble across us by accident or?
What? It'd be great. I mean, can't talk to you, but if you could chat in and tell us, that would let us know. We'll do more stuff in the future.
Oh yes, we certainly will.
Well, it's just not a chat day. People aren't chatting.
Not a chatty crowd today. That's fine. It could also be a delay too. Sometimes we have those chat problems. But
that is true.
And I got in no problem. So
that is true. Seems to be working. 104. It's probably close enough. So for folks with us, thank you for being with us. And I'm assuming that most other people are just going to catch the recording, which is why we made the courses, all but one of them on-demand courses, because people do that. So like when you sign up for the Introductory ACT training, that's at your own pace. It's called a home study course.
On demand, they say.
So how do we want to go about this today? I think maybe this is the ACT Matrix Academy, and I created the ACT Matrix in 2009 to make the process of learning ACT easier. I also made it so that it was easier to get in patients, clients, whatever you want to call them, engaged in the ACT process easier. So, and it's worked so far. So I'm going to take you around the matrix. Phil and I are going to take you around the matrix. And as we do so, we're going to talk about the three core processes of ACT.
Ooh.
So,
Yes.
so in order to do that, we had a vertical line. We'll get to that, a little bit more on that in a bit.
Yes.
There's senses at the top, bind at the bottom, and we'll explain more about that. The words contentment, satisfaction, those kind of words go over to the right. Those are feelings of, I feel content.
Nice.
And the other, relief. I got rid of pain or something and I feel relief. So that's that. But we started in the lower right-hand quadrant and we asked, who's important to you? And so now really, if you can chat in and say, who's important to you? For example, my wife is important to me. And so there you go. I started it off. My wife's important. And Phil will write down wife in the lower
Just
right
like that.
corner. And so if you're teaching yourself acceptance and commitment therapy, it's really a good idea for you to draw the cross lines and write down who's important to you in the lower right-hand quadrant. It's a big part of the training.
It's a big deal.
In all seriousness, folks, it's big. So if you can type it in the chat, that really helps. Your training.
Like I just did there. So I typed in daughter.
So Phil put daughter. His daughter is important to him.
And you folks can weigh in. And even if you're on the recording, you can type it in.
You can type in, and it helps. It gets you started in this process. So, boy, the chat is dead today. My,
it is quiet.
Usually we get somebody who ponies up and does a little chat.
Yeah.
Except for you and I, it is it. I wonder if people can hear us. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
Really strange.
Nobody coming through loud and clear. Give us a yes or a no or a thumbs up or set up a smoke signal.
Part of the function of the chat is also lets us know people can hear us, that things are going well. You can see us and hear us and all that. But we just got nothing going on over there except for Phil and I and Mary, but she was 12 hours ago.
Yeah.
22 hours ago. Whoa, long time ago. So anyways, so who's important goes in the lower right. Now, we're going to go to another of the processes of ACT, which is the lower left. And this is where we put yucky stuff. Here in the United States, Phil and I call it yucky. We know that in Great Britain, the UK, they call it the not once. Okay, yucky, not want, whatever. It's stuff like fear that you don't want. So you got fear and it doesn't feel good. You don't want it. Anxiety, we did a
get that awful
thing on a course on anxiety and depression. People don't enjoy feeling those. Those are also yucky. And the list goes on and on and on, folks. So, a couple of 3,000 terms, literally.
You can really get rolling on the yucky stuff.
That describe internal states that humans have that basically can be gathered up under the term yucky. We don't want it. So that's the internal stuff. So that's part of another process. Now we go to the upper left. We're actually staying on the same process. And we're talking about behaviors that we do to get relief from the yucky stuff. For example, I might run away, literally run, and get relief from fear. So that's an example. And we have anxiety. What do people do for anxiety?
Many, many things.
Nobody's chatting in today, so we'll
We'll supply.
supply a few.
How about we'll drink to relieve our anxiety?
People go get a little drink, and all kinds of legal and illegal drugs, folks, that are used for relief, including like aspirin for headaches, Tylenol, and such for headaches. So these are relief behaviors, and you do them. They're part of everyday life. Everybody does relief behaviors. In the upper right, we then do the stuff that hopefully leads to contentment, right? So, for example, with my wife, I might go talk to her, right? Simple behavior talk. Okay?
And for my daughter, I might watch Netflix with her.
Watch Netflix with the daughter. See? So simple things like this that you do that are getting you toward, approaching folks, getting contentment, satisfaction, those kinds of feelings. Okay? And just so you know, folks, the right-hand side of the matrix is about positive reinforcing stuff, and the left is about negative reinforcing. So now with that, we say, well, gee, looky there. We have these nice things, who's important and yucky stuff and relief moves and contentment moves, approach moves. We got all that. Gee, I wonder if I'll have the opportunity to notice all of this stuff in the next, few days, week or so. I mean, doesn't mean you will notice, but will you have the opportunity to notice all of that? I mean, I know I will. Yes, I will have the opportunity.
I'm pretty sure I will.
Yep. So that's it. So there you go. We just did, that's called a loop around the matrix. And what that does, folks, is that it does a quick overview without having to say it explicitly, which you don't want to talk about this explicitly with clients. There's no reason to. But the three overarching processes that you're working with acceptance and commitment therapy are.
Here we go.
And the one that we started with was get moving, which is the lower right. So he's got it that way, but it's also
That's way, but it's also down here too.
Also in the lower right. It's who's important. Well, those are the people we tend to want to get moving approach, get moving. And in ACT vernacular, it would be really get moving toward values, that kind of stuff. You'll discover later on why we don't talk about values, but we talk about get moving big time.
Oh, yeah.
And so we started off with get moving. So that's one of the big overarching processes. But then we quickly went over and touched on another of the processes, which is letting go. And if you say, well, okay, I get to get moving, but the letting go, what's that got to do with acceptance? Well, everything to do with acceptance. You're letting go of your struggle with naturally occurring yucky stuff and accepting it. So when you accept it, you at least reduce or completely do away with your struggle with it. Meaning you're having it, but just because you have it doesn't mean you have to struggle with it. So that's the let go acceptance process going on the left-hand side. And we finished up with the last of the processes, the third of the processes, which is show up to the present moment. And by definition, when you notice, you're showing up to the present moment. So that was that noticing. So there we have it. So you're doing, usually in the ACT books, it says let go, show up, get moving. But it can be it's a process going round and round in a circle. So it could be, show up I mean, it could be let go, show up, get moving, any way you want to do it. And we just got, for many, many reasons, we started doing the lower right-hand quadrant, who's important, which is really get moving. Okay. So that's number one. That's what you want to go. If you want to go get ready for your test on acceptance and commitment uh, therapy, you're going to say, well, it's about 3 interrelated processes. One of them is about getting people moving, approaching who and what's important to them. Let's say in the ACT books, they call it valued living. So where do you want to go in life? That kind of question.
Yep.
Okay, so you're going to get moving toward where you want to go in life. So what shows up and mucks with that? Well, yucky stuff. And if the yucky stuff shows up and you drop everything and go to struggling with the yucky stuff, well, by definition, you've dropped everything and you're struggling with the yucky stuff.
You're not moving.
You're not getting where you want to go in life. You are instead struggling with it. Once again, we'll keep coming back. This is all naturally occurring stuff. And just because you have pain and take a Tylenol, that's not very much struggle. That's pretty minimal, right? Then you get up back to what you need to get done, right? You have a bit of anxiety and you notice it. Oh my, I'm feeling anxious. Wow. Wonder what that's about. Oh, well, whatever. And I get back to my last.
Off I go.
And off I go. They're there, but you're not struggling with them. You're not engaging in with the others. Oh my God, I have anxiety. I've got to get rid of this anxiety before I can do anything else in my life. Oh my, oh my, oh my. What do I do? And pretty soon that's all you're doing is struggling with anxiety. So it's all about accepting the stuff that shows up inside of you and eliminating or at least minimizing your struggle with it. Okay. So that's that process. And then ACT is always talking about showing up to the present moment. The reason it talks about showing up to the present moment is that's where you learn. ACT is at its core a behavioral intervention. And what Phil and I like the best is the riding a bicycle example. And if you're up on a bike and you're thinking about the past or thinking about the future, that's not a very good way to learn how to ride a bike. You need to be focused on now. You're up on the bike, pay attention to
hands on handlebars.
Right. What's
steering.
So you want to be noticing, and the word that we use all across ACT, literally 100% of all ACT practitioners who speak English, that is, use the word notice or noticing, because it's just perfect for showing up to the present moment. Right? And so there you got the 3 processes. So, and then people, different ACT practitioners start off in different places. So now the mistake people do when they go to do ACT is that they get a book. And I don't know which book. I'm not going to pick on any of them, but some of them are sort of complicated. And they go, oh my goodness, where do I start? And they think, well, this value stuff sounds pretty good. I'll start there. Do values and committed actions and stuff. And Phil and I aren't saying that's horrible, but there's some hidden traps to it that you don't realize. And so you'll end up having to work yourself out of hidden traps.
Yeah, you don't realize it until you're in it.
Right. You're and we had to learn it the hard way too.
We experienced those traps.
So we're trying to help you avoid that difficulty that could show up. But something that seems very straightforward is like, well, I'll have somebody identify what they value, and then I'll work with them on designing committed actions that
Yes.
will support
Intervention.
that, and we're good to go. Well, so some people, yeah, that's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, fine. We're not denying that. But there's a significant number of people that, no, that won't work out for you.
Like the kind of people that we have worked with over the years.
Now, back to, I worked with Vietnam veterans and for PTSD and substance use veterans and stuff. So, sort of kind of a rough, well, many of them were downright
Yeah.
rough crowd.
Yeah.
And Phil just worked with a downright rough crowd.
Ne'er-do-well teenagers and stuck families and stuff like that. Right.
So we found lots of people who you could really run into troubles
Quickly.
Doing values and committed action work. I mean, serious troubles, folks. Therapy stopping struggles. So we, rather than even risk that, we switched around. Nevertheless, that's where some people start. So what we recommend, and of course we do the ACT matrix, we recommend that you start doing just like we said. Draw 2 lines, do it for yourself. Fill in who's important to you in the lower right. Got it. Then fill in the kind of yucky stuff that shows up inside of you. Fear, anxiety, that kind of stuff. Check. Go to the upper part, which is where behaviors are, observable behaviors. Think about what your favorite anxiety reducing or fear reducing or whatever behaviors are. Drink, watch Netflix, YouTube, eat, whatever. That kind of stuff. In the upper right, think about what do I do to interact with, approach who's important to me. Oh, and gee, I wonder if I'll have the opportunity to notice all this stuff. Bingo. You just rolled through get moving, let go, show up. And you said, wow, there I go. I did an ACT process. And we recommend you do that 30 or 40 times.
Yeah.
And now, since you're learning this, when you do it, think about it. Okay, the right-hand side is the get moving side. The left-hand side is the letting go, the acceptance side. Right in the smack in the middle, the notice, well, that's the showing up to the present moment. So I'll do that. And that's it. That's all you ever do with anybody. With that.
Yes.
There is no more, folks. It becomes the art and the skill of doing those 3 processes with yourself and other people. Now, notice I said yourself and other people. That's why people ask, well, what's this all about? And most frequent answer is, oh, it's all about moving toward values. No, it's not.
No.
Oh, it's all about letting go of your struggles. No, it's not. Oh, it's all about showing up to the present moment. We already discovered, no, that's not it. Now, those are the 3 processes, but none of them are more important than the other. They're all equally important. So why are you doing these 3 equally important processes? It's to increase psychological flexibility. That's it. That's what your target is. That's what you're going for with acceptance and commitment therapy and training. You're looking to do behaviors that increase psychological flexibility. It won't take you long to discover that in order to influence somebody else's psychological flexibility to increase it, you have to increase your psychological flexibility. And that's why it keeps coming back to you do it for yourself.
Do your own.
And then do it with other people. Your
Yes.
psychological flexibility is like many other things in social events, it's contagious.
It spreads.
It spreads quickly.
It really does.
Right. And so you have to be flexible. And it's not hard. Just run through this process that we just did.
Do a loop.
We call it doing a loop. So people will say, "Oh, the ACT matrix, what, it's whatever." It's for doing those three processes really easy. And notice I never had to talk about the three processes.
Yeah. We're not saying now we're going to do the letting go process. Now we're going to do that. We don't do that.
Which is what a lot of people do, including myself. When you start, including Phil too, when you start doing ACT, you go, "Oh my, I need to teach people what values are.
Oh, right.
I need to teach people what committed actions are.
Yeah.
I need to teach people what showing up to the present moment is. I need to teach people what acceptance is." Actually, none of that is true. You do not. You need to get them into those three processes, period.
Do that.
And they need no instruction. You just need to get them into it. And if you then ask, "Well, how do I do that?" Do that. What we just did.
Yeah. Who's
important? Yucky stuff. Relief moves. Contentment moves. Notice. Do it again. Keep rolling through that process like that. And then you'll get the hang of it. Then you will know how to ride the bicycle. And then you're in a good spot for showing somebody else how to ride the bicycle, the ACT bicycle. So that's what you're up to with folks. And it's actually quite rewarding to do. It's really cool stuff. So we got the whole thing. That's the three processes, and the target is psychological flexibility.
I'll put that in the middle.
So, okay, then people will say, "Well, what about this ACT for anxiety stuff?"
Oh, funny you should ask.
Yeah, that's a product of our times. That's what that is. It's not really targeting anxiety.
Nope.
It's targeting psychological flexibility.
Right in the middle.
Sell books and courses and stuff. You say, because people want that cause and effect business. No, there's more to this stuff, going on behind the hood, but just know that
essentially
it's about increasing psychological flexibility. That's it. So it's not.
It's really minimize what you have to do.
The very first ACT book was ACT for Depression. And what do you do for depression? You increase psychological flexibility.
What do you do for anxiety? Same thing.
All right. PTSD, it's all the same process. It's always about increasing psychological flexibility, which is defined as having yucky stuff, but being able to continue in behaviors that get you where you want to go in life. So the number one thing about ACT is that thing that we keep coming back to, which is I'm going to look at my behaviors. I'm going to notice my behaviors. And I'm going to notice if they're working to get me where I want to go in life. And that's why Steve Hayes and company came up with values. Because values are these long-term life accomplishment kind of goals that fit with that. Well, if I know where I want to go way down the road, now I can look at my behaviors, notice my behaviors, and notice if they work to do that. Now, by the way, folks, relief behaviors like getting out of the way of buses to save your life, they work for getting you where you want to go. So relief and contentment behaviors, both sides can work to get you where you want to go. However, you work with people, and about, well, where do you want to go in life? Where do you think you want to go? And you say, well, why don't you just ask them what their values are? Because there's certain people that will take offense to you talking about values. They will think that you're using fancy words with them. So one, they'll think you're using fancy words and they won't like it.
Yeah.
Two, they'll think you're talking about religion and they won't like that. Or three, they think you're talking about politics and they won't like that. I've had all of this happen.
Yeah. You're talking down to them, that kind of stuff.
Or you're one-upping them, right?
Right.
You're using words. So once again, you get into these populations like Phil and I work with, and that's going to happen several times a week.
A day. Yes.
We got tired of that in a real hurry. And
Yeah.
so we switched it to who's important to you. And then the bigger one is, where do you want to go in life?
Right.
And people will talk about that.
Oh,
At least the people that we worked with, they would talk about that.
they were ready and willing to discuss that.
Right, and they didn't think you were talking down to them. However, that is extraordinarily important conversation because the whole therapy is built on answering the question, are my behaviors, the totality of my behaviors, working to get me where I want to go in life? By the way, that is totally different than like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It was created to fix problems. It was created to fix anxiety, fix depression. But, it fixed substance use. It is focused on fixing the problem, where ACT is focused on learning behaviors that work to get you where you want to go in life, regardless of anything that's showing up inside of it.
Right. With this stuff.
And some stuff that shows up inside of you needs attention. You need to take care of it.
Yeah.
You've got you're ill.
Yeah, you've got pain showing up in you.
Right. You need to fix it. And you say, well, is that working to get me where I want to go? Probably it is. Yeah. So once again, it's that. But CBT was very much focused on fixing something. Same with Freud stuff. It was about fixing something, paralysis, hysterical paralysis.
Right.
Mainly it was focused on fixing it. So a lot of it's fixing. Now there's other process therapies that are more looking to the future and that, but ACT is very explicit about it. So there is another thing to know. So number one, it's based on folks having a notion of where they want to go in life and then noticing behaviors and whether they work or don't work to do that. What can get in the way of that process? Number one, you forget who's important to you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. These people down here.
That's number one. Number two, you get all caught up trying to fix anxiety and depression and stuff that can't be fixed. So you get stuck on the left side over there trying to fix things and muck things up. And while you're doing all of that, you're paying precious little attention to the present.
Your eyeballs aren't up here.
No, you're
down here.
You're fretting over what happened in the past, and you're worried about what's going to happen in the future, and you're tripping over tree roots in the meantime.
Yep.
I'm going to the woods example, but
literally walking into walls,
All right, you're walking into walls and stuff. You're not focused on the here and now. Okay, so the whole thing is based on that we forget our directions. We forget where we want to go in life. We get caught up in the struggles of things and end up spending way too much time struggling with internal events that keep coming back. No matter how much we struggle with them, they keep coming back. Sometimes the act of struggling makes them come back even more. Okay.
Oh. It gets worse.
It makes it worse. And as humans, we have this ability to think about the past and think about the future. and we end up with not very much time spent focusing on what's right in front of us, what's trickling in front of us. And so again, what's ACT about? Getting people in contact with who's important to them, where they want to go in life. Getting people noticing how much they're struggling with internal events, and at times letting go of that struggle, accepting the internal events and letting go of that struggle. And then finally, how do you get around, getting into the present moment? Quick hint, folks, notice a whole lot more. That's noticing. And, that's another one. You say, well, what? Everybody recommends mindfulness.
Oh yeah.
Exercises. Yeah, well, okay. Well, I'm going to trot out the vets and the ne'er-do-well students.
Oh yeah, I could just see my students. They would just sit and do mindfulness exercises all day.
Didn't work out. No. I mean, it didn't work out most of the time, folks. So really, mindfulness and meditation and those kind of things were just not, it didn't work in our populations. So we don't worry about it. We just as much, you've already seen as much as we talk about that stuff. That's it. We don't belabor that at all. But do people in the therapy, when we work with them, do they come back reporting, noticing the present moment a lot more? Yeah.
Yes, they do.
They do. So it's doing its job. It's just you're not having to do mindfulness stuff. So another, just so you know, and I know you'll probably want to go out, you're new at this, and you say, no, I got to do these values exercises. Yes. No, I got to do this committed.
You're going to have an urge to do that.
And I just got to at least do the mindfulness stuff.
Got to give it a shot.
Oh, fine. Whatever. Just remember that if you say something like this, well, here's this value sheet. Why don't you go home and work on your value sheet? Oh, and by the way, it's also over to the right. There's a column for committed actions. So you can come up with values and you can come up with committed actions. Why don't you go home and do that? Okay. You just assigned homework.
Oh, yes.
That's trouble.
Oh, yeah.
Period.
And especially when you're working with young people, it's a big trouble.
So, ixnay on that. The other thing is, you need to go home and spend at least 5 minutes per day doing mindfulness or meditation.
Charting out the thoughts and what's showing up.
I don't care which way you do it. And I've been around this business being near 40 years, folks.
So
that's called assigning homework. Fine and good. If they decide to come back, most of them will not have done the homework.
Yes. Think about the track record of homework being completed.
It's going to be abysmal.
Dismal.
And so now, does your therapy stop because they didn't do it? At the very least, you have the problem of you're now the teacher and they didn't do their homework. You just switched out of a therapist mode or training mode and you just switched into teacher mode. I know. I trained doctoral level psychologists for 30 years of my life, folks. Bill did a lot of training too, master's level folks.
Yep, same thing.
These are traps. These are traps.
Big traps. Now you're arguing about homework.
Yeah, and
now you're struggling about homework.
And you're in a one-up relationship. You're not in a level relationship. You've gone in a one-up relationship with somebody.
And you're adding to the stuff.
And why am I talking about that? Is exactly that.
Yeah.
ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, is designed to be equal. no one up. And so when you assign homework,
Yep, automatically taking the high ground.
you can't not do it. Literally, you can't. And so remember we said there was hidden traps. That's one.
That's a biggie.
That's a big hidden trap. So ACT is very non-judgmental, very equal. I literally heard Steve Hayes say once. Steve Hayes is the guy that wrote the original ACT book, and he said, "Hey, we're all just rowers in a boat, and we all each have our own oar, but we're all in the same boat." Okay, that's what he means by that equal stance. Okay? And so, don't go one-upping yourself on something. So the matrix is designed that you don't do that. You don't. It took a lot of thousands of hours to come up with playing around with things to get to where you can to both teach interns, doctoral level in people how to do ACT and engage the clients with it. And that's what you do. So there you go. And so in all honesty, folks, if you'll do this, you don't have to worry about assigning any meditation or anything.
You're doing ACT. You're doing it.
If people want to do that, fine, but don't assign it to them. In the same way, let's say and I've done this. I take a matrix and say, well, here's your matrix. You can take it home with you. And you'll hear me saying, if you saw me handing it to them, you can use it if you want to, and you can not use it. Either way, it's fine. I mean, I'm just giving it to you for your information, but whether you use it or not is totally up to you. I'm not assigning that in any way, shape, or form. And that's me pulling that homework off. I do not do that, because other than that, I'll end up in a one-up relationship, and I don't want to do that. Okay, now I'm confused. I'll be confused. If I go one up, I just lost psychological flexibility. Remember, the target's psychological flexibility. You just threw the client into you got to do the homework or not do the homework. That is not psychological.
You've thrown them into a bind.
Yeah. And I'm sure you all went to school and you got homework assigned to you. And as you got the homework assigned to you, you did not feel more psychologically flexible. As a matter of fact, you probably felt.
Well, more heaviness showed up in me, for sure. Another thing to do, rats.
Right. I mean, it doesn't work out, folks. So if your goal is to increase psychological flexibility, then you're going to be very careful about such things. So there you go, folks. It's these three processes: show up, let go, get moving. Put it in. We start with get moving, because who's important. We start with who's important to you. And if why are you starting with that? Because it's a really great conversation starter. That's why.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot better than what are your problems? Which is where most therapy starts. And we decided, that's not a very good conversation starter. We would rather start with who's important to you. And people will go, oh, and they will talk to you about that. So now you got a conversation going, that equal conversation. My wife is important. Your daughter is important. We're all nice and equal. If I say what's wrong with you, I'm instantly saying I'm the great guru who's going to fix what's wrong with you.
No. We're saying, me too.
And this is, so we start there. Then we go to the let go process, let go and acceptance. And then we finish with show up, with the noticing. And do those three. And just know that your target is psychological flexibility. And as you work through the therapy in the future, what you ask people about once they know this process is, well, how are things working to get you where you want to go in life? That is always it. That's what we all forget. We forget who's important. We forget to do behaviors that ultimately lead to where we want to get in life. It's just easy to forget. There's a lot of really crappy stuff that happens in the world, and you forget. And so this is about getting back in that process. So wicked fun process. And also, by the way, folks, it does not lead to burnout. ACT done this way does not lead to burnout. You just won't burn out on it. Can't say that about the other therapies. They can get you burned out.
Oh, over time you get crispy.
Yep. Or this, you end up, and especially if you'll practice the matrix that we showed you how to go around a loop, and you get very adept at doing that, well, you can go show it to any group or anybody. It's real easy to go show it to a business organization or something. That's why we say training and therapy. You're just training people in the psychological flexibility process.
Works equally well for either one.
Right. So but now you know that you're not going in to fix a problem. You're going into increase psychological flexibility. When you know that that's what you're doing, your life becomes a lot easier.
Man, does it become easier and simpler.
It's like Bill and I have both been invited to organizations. And, you can get really tied up in doing that because you'll get to thinking, oh my gosh, it's my responsibility to fix this organization.
Oh, yeah.
Is not going to happen.
Not going to happen, and it's not your job.
And it's not your job, right? And so I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm just going to go in and muck around and see if psychological flexibility increases. Well, that's a lot easier to pull off.
I could pull that off.
And especially go, well, how you do that? Show them the matrix.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. And it's the 3 processes of ACT are built into it. That's why the ACT matrix is popular. It's because it has the 3 processes baked in. But you want to put it that way. Baked right in there. They're just rolling along. Now, part of your mind will say, well, I've got to stop and talk about the 3 processes. No, you don't. Absolutely.
Yeah, that would just be your mind talking to you there.
Right. The only time you have to stop and talk about them in this trainings like this.
Yeah.
You'll say, well, Kevin's talking about them. Yeah. We're doing an introductory acceptance and commitment therapy training. Yeah. So we talk about more. But if I'm just going to show it to a business group or a substance abuse group or whatever, no, I just run through the loop. I don't talk about any of this.
Nope.
The purpose. What's the psychological flexibility show up? It does right before your eyes. It's really cool. So there you go. That's Introductory ACT. Intermediate with more perspective taking.
Yes.
So that's what intermediate is. And advanced is when you start talking about the philosophy and theory of language and cognition.
That's when you start to throw some more words at people.
But once again, that's just for training purposes.
For you folks that are watching.
Has nothing to do.
Not for your clients. Not for the kids.
Don't do that. But for your own edification, you're working whatever. So please do click the button and sign up for our APA courses.
Yes.
It's CE. I mean, if you're any kind of psychologist, they work for CE. Most social workers.
Yep. We're NFT,
MFTs,
counselors, nurses. Most of the time, you have to also check with your state association to make sure. Most of them do. We've done the work. Most of them do.
Anyway, we hope you enjoyed it.
Yes.
Nobody, this may set a record. Nobody has chatted in.
I know.
Not a single one. Wow. Amazing. Well, maybe the chat was broken. But
Could be.
3 processes: target of psychological flexibility, and ultimately you're asking the question, is all this stuff working to get me where I want to go in life?
Right there.
Do that every day. You're doing ACT just fine. And if you're worried about getting started, just do the loop.
Yep. Practice.
Practice that. That's how you practice the 3 processes. And you're up and riding the bike.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. I don't have any. Did I miss anything, Phil?
No, I think we covered it all.
I think so. I like this one better than the last one.
Oh yeah, the slides.
Yeah.
We had tried some slides before, folks.
This was better. So
We
hopefully
like it.
you all enjoyed it. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming. And what is today? Wednesday. Oh,
Hey,
Friday we're doing a training, so we
Yeah,
won't be.
we won't be here
We'll
Friday.
be back till next Monday.
next Monday.
So see ya.
Take care.